for being with us today. Harry Truman once said, "It's amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit." And this is one of the principles our immediate past district director of 105 strongly vouches for. To introduce our next champion speaker, let's welcome distinguished Toastmaster Robin Anand.
Thank you for those kind words, Sanila. And a very good afternoon to all the members of District 105 family and all the wonderful guests who joined us today. I want to tell you about a gentleman who was an introvert and who attended a big Indian wedding of his friend some time back. And the profound impact of that wedding was that he went on to become a world champion of public speaking in the year 2019. But do you think it's an unbelievable story? Then you're right, because that was exactly the title of his speech, an unbelievable story. Now, he is a master storyteller, which we could gauge from what he did that day. The 7 minutes of his master class on storytelling was amazing, and he had a very powerful message of acceptance despite differences. Now, Aaron Beverly fully believes that Toastmaster community, the mentors and all the supporters together, and of course his hard work and his storytelling skills were responsible for him to exhibit those amazing extrovert moments, or he calls it extrovert flashes of brilliance, for him to win the world championship. Now, apart from being a master storyteller, what else does he do? He is also a keynote speaker, a trainer, and a world traveler. And as a keynote speaker, he has spoken in many Fortune 100 companies, and he's also spoken in many universities of repute. He firmly believes that Toastmasters can help us improve our personal life, our professional life, and also advance our careers. Today, he is here among us to inspire us to keep speaking, to keep improving, and keep moving. So please put your hands together for this charming storyteller all the way from Philadelphia, Aaron Beverly.
Thank you, Toastmaster Robin, and thank you for everyone in District 105 and beyond for your gracious welcome and your kind invitation. It is a pleasure to be here today. But hearing that the 2019 World Champion of Public Speaking, this means that officially, as of last week, I am a past World Champion of Public Speaking. And I guarantee you that Mike Carr is not the happiest person in the world about that fact. I am. Because when you become a world champion of public speaking and you are the reigning world champion of public speaking, you realize how different people start to treat you. I go to a Toastmasters event, and as soon as I hit the room, I hear people say, "Oh my goodness, that's Aaron Beverly." And I think to myself, well, yeah, I've always been Aaron Beverly. Where have you been? But it also gets a little bit strange. There was one gentleman, he came up, he talked to me, he said, "Aaron, oh, you're so amazing." And that's usually common. I usually get people that greet me that way. But then he says, "I dream about you." Okay, that's a little bit weird, but it gets weirder. On social media, there was one gentleman who sent me a message and he said, "Aaron, could you please send me a voice message?" I typed back, I responded, "Why?" He said, "I just want to hear the sound of your voice." He was immediately unfriended. Now, when people get into this situation, they can either buckle under all of the pressure and attention that they are getting, or they can allow their ego to run rampant. I couldn't do either. I wouldn't buckle under the pressure because I was so gracious for having the opportunity to be the world champion of public speaking. And I couldn't let my ego get the better of me because I knew where I started from. As the Toastmaster mentioned in my introduction, I am an introvert. And public speaking isn't something that naturally came easy to me. At one point, I absolutely hated public speaking. I wanted nothing to do with it. If I had an option, whether to speak to a large group of people or sit home alone reading a book, guess which option I was going to choose? I was going to choose the book every single time. I would probably read my favorite book, Harry Potter. At this point, I'm reading it again. It is probably the 10,000th time that I am reading it. I am what they call a pothead, but I am not the kind that came immediately to your head, the good kind. But public speaking is not my natural element. I actually remember talking to my friend George. It was about 7 years back. We're sitting in a restaurant after our Toastmasters meeting. We're having drinks, we're eating food, having a good time. Then we start the conversation about introverts and extroverts. I tell my friend George that I am probably one of the biggest introverts that you could ever meet. My friend George, he ponders this. He puts down his drink. He looks me in the eye and he says a word that I will never forget. Psh. Yes, that is the word. Psh. Spelled P-S-S-H. Psh. Now, what does that word mean? Well, in summary, it means, Aaron, that's some bullshit, but I choose not to use that type of language for a Toastmasters event. So we will just stick with psh. George's logic was that I could not possibly be an introvert at that time because I was good at public speaking. But what George didn't know was how much work it took to get to that point and how much work it always takes me to get to a new level of public speaking mastery. So how did I go from being an introvert, a person who hated public speaking, to becoming the world champion of public speaking? It all boils down to one statement that I now use as a model for my life. Keep speaking, keep improving, keep moving. I started public speaking at a very young age, at the age of 6 years old. And it was mainly because I was forced to do something that I did not want to do because of a parent. Now, if you are a parent, you have probably made your children do something that they do not want to do. And if that is the case, I say, shame on you. Of course, I'm joking, but I grew up in a Christian household. One day, my mom is driving me to church when all of a sudden she has this brilliant idea. She says, for the first time in his young life, my 6-year-old son is going to stand in front of the entire church congregation and read a passage from the Bible. Now, when my mom told me this, I looked at her and I said, psh. And no, I'm joking. I did not actually say that to my mother because, my friends, that would have been stupid. No. Instead, I looked at my mom, I crossed my arms and I said, no. But my friends, that was stupid too. Growing up in my household, there were many words that a child was not allowed to say to a parent. And one of those words was no. My mom was furious. And I'm talking Incredible Hulk with a wig, furious. In that moment, I was faced with humanity's two greatest fears. Speaking in front of that church congregation, that was the fear of public speaking. Facing my angry mother, that was the fear of death. Since I am still alive today, you know which option I chose. But I remember standing in front of that church congregation, standing at the lectern, my body shaking uncontrollably, my heart is pounding. When it was over, I remember thinking, I'm glad that's over. I will never do that again. I hate public speaking. Fast forward to middle school. I'm about to graduate from the 8th grade. Graduation meant that the valedictorian had to give a speech. And I thought that was a fantastic idea because I was not the valedictorian. In fact, I was not the second best in my class. I was not the third best in my class. I was fourth. I have never been happier not being in first place. That is until my teacher, Mr. Zane, he has this brilliant idea. He says, for the first time in the history of middle school graduations, we are going to have speeches from the top 4 students. I'm sitting in the back of that classroom. I'm listening to him say this stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, psh. Graduation comes. I get up on that stage. My body's shaking uncontrollably. My heart is pounding. When it's all over, I think to myself, I am glad that's over. I am never doing that again. I hate public speaking. Fast forward 4 years later, I am now a senior in high school. Now, in high school, I was not the best student. I wasn't the 4th best in my class. I wasn't the 15th best in my class. I wasn't the 50th best in my class. I really was not a good student. But the bright side, I was not going to have to give any speeches. That is until my principal, Mrs. Pelzer, she has this brilliant idea. She says, for the first time in the history of this school, we will teach every single senior public speaking. All the teachers think, oh, wow, that's such a great idea. Me, I'm thinking, psh. Senior year comes and goes. I take those classes again. Every time I speak, my heart is pounding, my body's shaking uncontrollably. When my senior year was done, I said, I am glad that's over. I will never do that again. I hate public speaking. Freshman year in college, guess what class I have to take? Public speaking. Have you ever had a person who liked you, but you didn't like them back, but they could not take the hint? For me, that was public speaking. Why couldn't public speaking see that I just did not like it in the same way that it liked me? I wanted nothing to do with it. Why couldn't it understand that I was an introvert? Why couldn't it understand that I could not be a public speaker? At least that's what I thought. But what I realized was that it was my own limited thinking. All the years that I had been speaking, from 6 years old all the way up to high school, I was speaking, but I wasn't improving. There was something keeping me from improving. But what was it? To be honest with you, it was fear. After all of the experience, I still feared public speaking, and it was an impediment for me to grow and improve. But it's not enough just to know that you're afraid of public speaking. A lot of people say that they fear public speaking, but what you need to do is you need to specify the fear. Now, just really quick, for those of you who have your keyboards handy and your fingers are quick on those keyboards, I want you to type out some of the reasons why you believe people fear public speaking, or why you at one time may have feared public speaking. Let's just list down some of the reasons. Being judgments, one right after, wow, 3 judgments right in a row. People will laugh at you. Fear of failure. Underestimation, okay, that's a good one. Embarrassment. And somebody messaged me privately that you forget your line, freeze, and end up bombing. Oh, we'll get back to that. Feeling that you're not good enough. Feeling that you're just not good at public speaking. Again, being judged, low self-esteem, feel that you'll get exposed. And another one, mind blank. Language, most likely when English is your second language. Stage fright and afraid what they'll think of me, and subject matter. Now, as more of these come in, thank you for providing this. You have just completed a very critical exercise, an exercise that I advise for you to take to your clubs or for anyone that you may mentor. It is not just enough to say that you fear public speaking. You have to specify what the fear is. You have to specify what the limitation is. If you do not specify your fear, you are guaranteed to intensify your fear. A lot of people say, I am fearful of public speaking. When they say that, they make it this huge mountain that they cannot possibly overcome. But by specifying the fear, you end up making that huge mountain into a small hurdle. And a hurdle can be jumped over or walked around. You may not fear a large audience, but you may fear that English is your second language and that you'll be rejected when you speak. You may not have a fear of forgetting what you want to say because you feel that you've practiced enough, but you just have a huge anxiety over speaking in front of large crowds. This specification is absolutely critical because you will need to do something after you specify the fear. But the exercise that we just did was something that I wish I could have done beforehand. Instead, my fear was thrown at me right in the heat of speaking. When I was a sophomore in college, my second year, I joined a student leadership training program. At the end of this program, there was a graduation of sorts. Every graduate had a role to fill. My role was to give a gift to the keynote speaker and say a few words of appreciation. Again, public speaking. But I only had to say 3 lines. On behalf of the Student Leadership Training Institute, we would like to thank you for your time today. Please accept this token of appreciation. That was it. I would shake his hand. I would sit down. The day came. The keynote speaker finished speaking. I stood up. I shook his hand and I said, on behalf of, I completely went blank. And when you go blank on stage, that is when time just slows down. You realize how many eyes are looking at you. You can see people who may be even laughing at you. It was 15 seconds of the most awkward silence that you could have ever experienced. 15 seconds, and I am still holding this man's hand. He is looking at me as if to say, kid, please say something. It is not that hard. I did. Here. And I sat down. In that moment, I faced my specific fear. I feared that I was going to forget what I wanted to say and embarrass myself. And when it was done, I said, I am glad that's over. I am never doing that again. I hate being embarrassed. And when I made that statement, when I stopped making it about a fear of public speaking, I started to move forward. I started to get better. I started to improve because I took action on that specific fear. My action was to join Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters in 2009, the year that Mark Hunter won the World Championship of Public Speaking. So it's interesting how things align like that sometimes. But I knew what I wanted to avoid. I wanted to avoid another instance where I forgot what I wanted to say and embarrassed myself again. So to do this, I practiced this novel concept called practicing your speech. Maybe you've heard of it. But I kid you not, for my first speech in Toastmasters, the icebreaker speech, I practiced literally for 20 hours straight. 20 hours straight for a 4-minute speech. Now, I do not advise you to practice your speeches for 20 hours straight. I have since learned many different ways to practice without taking that much of your time. But when I gave my icebreaker speech, it was good. It had 0 filler words. It was full of vocal variety. In fact, when I was done my speech, the Toastmaster of the day got up. He stood in front of everybody. He pointed to me and he said, "There is a future world champion of public speaking." When I heard him say that, my first thought was, what is a world champion of public speaking? That was my first introduction that there was an international speech contest and that it culminated in the World Championship of Public Speaking. But before getting to the World Championship, I was just happy with the fact that I specified my fear, I took specific action on my fear, and I started the cycle of improvement. So it was no longer just speaking, I was now speaking and improving. This is something that I ask you to take to your clubs, to your mentor, to your mentees. Specify their actions or specify their fears, then take the specific action to tackle those fears. Only then can they truly start to see improvement. Over the years, I kept speaking and I felt that I kept improving. I became one of the best speakers in my club, and then I became the best speaker in my club. And I finally decided that I would participate in the International Speech Contest in 2012. In 2012, I had allowed that gentleman's sayings back in 2009 to get to my head a little bit. I thought that I was going to win the world championship in my first year because it was just destiny. Everything was going to align to me winning the world championship. And when you want something, you think that the world is just positioning itself just for you. I was trying to find any sign at all. Like, oh, wait, I found a quarter on the ground. That means I'm going to be the world champion of public speaking. Total nonsense, but I thought that this was going to happen. When I got to my club, I was supremely confident that I was going to dominate, and I did. I dominated the competition because there was no competition. I was the only person that participated. But going to the area, I knew that it would just keep going. I would dominate every single round until I made it to the World Championship of Public Speaking. So you can imagine my surprise when I could not get out of the area. I placed second. Afterwards, a gentleman came up to me. He said, "Do you want to know why you lost?" Keep in mind, if you are a competitor in a speech contest and you consider yourself to be a competitive person, the last thing that you want to hear from anybody, especially a person that you do not know, is, "Do you want to know why you lost?" But luckily for this gentleman and for myself, I was able to maintain my composure. And I said, "Sure, tell me." But what he told me changed my perspective. He told me, "Aaron, when you spoke, you just preached to the audience. There was no story, there was no connection to you as a speaker." He said, "You need help with your fundamentals. You need help with your storytelling." Deep inside, I knew that I needed help, but the ego had kept me from improving more than I could. You don't have to do it by yourself. It is okay to ask people for help, especially in the beginning when you're not as experienced. I needed to find a mentor, but it wasn't just enough to find a mentor. I wanted to find a quality mentor, a mentor that would fit me as a speaker. When it comes to mentorship, a lot of people just want to find people who sit at the pinnacle of success of whatever field that they may be in. If people want to participate in the international speech contest, they'll immediately think, "Oh, let me ask Aaron Beverly if he can be my mentor. Let me ask Mark Hunter if he can be my mentor," because we've reached the pinnacle. But keep in mind that you don't always have to reach out to the people who stand at the pinnacle of success that you're trying to achieve. You just need to find somebody who has more experience than you do. I have 5 criteria for a quality mentor. And with these qualities, I was able to find my mentor. My mentor actually was in front of me the entire time. He didn't stand at the pinnacle of the international speech contest success, but he had more experience than I did. And I was lucky because he had a lot more experience than I had. He didn't reach the pinnacle, but he almost did. My mentor was Dr. Dilip Abesekera. Dr. Dilip Abesekera was the 2005-2006 president of Toastmasters International. He was also a participant in the international speech contest, placing second in 1992. Because he had that experience, he could teach me, which was actually the first criteria of a quality mentor. The first criteria of a quality mentor is that they have been where you want to go. And again, they don't have to stand at the pinnacle of success. They don't have to stand at the top of the mountain, but they just need to be higher than where you currently are. So I encourage you to find someone who has more experience than you do and seek mentorship from them. But it's not quite enough just to find somebody who has more experience. There are other criteria that you should keep in mind. The second criteria of a quality mentor is that they fit your speaking style. If there's anybody who is familiar with the speaker Tony Robbins, you will know that Tony Robbins is a super high energy speaker. When he gets on stage, he just rah, 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 rah. First 50 seconds of his presentation, I would be tired. But he is a great speaker, but that does not mean that he would be a quality mentor for me because he does not fit my speaking style. I'm more reserved in my presentation. I am a storyteller. I like to tell a story. I make a point. I shut up. I sit down. Dilip was the same way. Dilip would get up, he would tell his story, and then he would sit down. Well, after he made his point, then he would sit down. That is the style that I wanted to improve upon. I went to Dilip because he had the same speaking style. If you have a mentor or a coach who has a conflicting style than you do, you're going to butt heads. You may butt heads on philosophy, or you may not feel comfortable doing something that your coach or mentee is recommending. You do not want that friction in a mentor-mentee relationship. So you want to find someone who fits your speaking style. But again, that's not enough. Moving on to the third criteria of a quality mentor. The third criteria of a quality mentor is that they practice and preach the fundamentals. If you get a mentor, do they know how to structure a speech properly? Do they know how to engage an audience with their eyes? Are they masters of body movement? You want to make sure that you understand this. You want to make sure that they understand this. So seek out a mentor that has the fundamentals. Number 4, they will give you unbiased feedback. Now, there are speakers or mentors and coaches who will say, oh yeah, that was a great speech, even though they know deep down inside that what they just heard from you was absolute crud. You want a mentor who's not going to be as blunt as I was just now, but you do want somebody that's going to tell you the truth. I remember writing a speech for Dilip. I thought that this was the best speech ever. This was going to be the one. In 2013, this was going to be the speech that won the World Championship of Public Speaking. I handed the speech to Dilip, and he told me it has potential. This can probably squeak by an area contest. This will not get past division. That was something that I needed to hear because it made me know that I needed to keep working. But it would not have happened if I did not have someone who was willing to give me unbiased feedback. This leads me to the final criteria. Number 5, your mentor, your coach will never, ever tell you that their way is the only way. They will encourage you to find your own way. If you ever have a coach or mentee that tells you that you must follow exactly what I do, because if you do not follow exactly what I do, you will not succeed. If you ever encounter a mentor or a coach like that, I want you to introduce them to a brand new word. Psh, and then I want you to leave them as soon as possible. There is no such thing as the way. There is only a way. It is up to you to find your way. And a quality mentor will stress that. That's what Dilip stressed to me. That's what I started to do after receiving his mentorship. In 2013, the direct result of Dilip's mentorship was that I went from not being able to get out of the second round to getting to the semifinals of the World Championship of Public Speaking. But that wasn't enough. I needed to get better. I needed to find my own way. In 2014, I tried something new, something a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And that's the lesson there. You want to go a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but not so far out of your comfort zone that you totally alienate everything that you are. I admit I probably went a little bit too far over, but 2014, I made it back to the semifinals by myself. It was a proud moment for me. I didn't get to the World Championship, but I did see the winner that year, Dhananjaya Hidetarachi. His speech was simple. It was a simple story about his personal life. I saw that speech and I said, I want to tell a story like that. I worked on that in 2015, a personal story that I honestly thought people would think was too common and too simple. It was about a dating experience that I had when I was younger. I gave that speech in my district and I could not make it back to the semifinals. But a gentleman came up to me afterwards and he said, Aaron, that is the best speech that I have ever heard you give. I was on to something, which led me to 2016. I took that same speech. I had the luck to be near 2 districts. So I took that speech. I didn't throw it away. I made it better. I improved it. And then that got me to the World Championship of Public Speaking for the first time. In 2016, I made it to the World Championship. I gave the speech that has come to be known as the 57-word title speech. I left that stage with regret because I thought more about the judging than I did about my message and the audience. When I left that stage, I said, I will make sure that I focus on speech execution and focusing on what matters. 2017, that's exactly what I did. I didn't make it back to the World Championship. I got to the semifinals and did not place, but I left content knowing that there was nothing more that I could have done for that speech at that time. 2018, it was a story about 2 trophies. I came second in my district that year, and I was disheartened. But I realized my limited belief again, my limited mindset. I had another trophy. It was for the evaluation contest from my district. I won that evaluation contest the first time I had ever tried. Just because you don't reach one goal does not mean that you are not improving. I knew that I was improving, and so I said, I'm going to focus on what really matters, and that is my growth. That is my message to my audience. And I focused on that. I did not make it a goal to win the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2019. But it just so happens that in 2019, the year that I decided that I was not going to make it a goal to win the World Championship of Public Speaking, I won the World Championship of Public Speaking. It is a matter of growth, my friends. And before I close, we're going to have a little bit of Q&A. So I invite Toastmasters Sanila to come back and introduce our Q&A session.
Thank you, Toastmaster Aaron Beverly. But before that, may I request everyone to turn the cameras on and take a quick picture. May I have everybody's videos on, please? Toastmaster Dinesh, please let us know. And maybe you can have like thumbs up or a victory sign or whatever. Let's keep taking pictures.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Sanila. We are ready to take the pictures. We have 3 pages. I think we have more people to turn on the videos. I request everyone to turn on their video. And yes. So let's take the first picture. DTM Deepa, Gurbinder, DTM Balaji, Ropin Anand, everyone is here. So let's take the picture. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. We'll go to the next page. Yes. Yeah, we have Adarsh. Hi, Adarsh. Anup Chandran and many more. Yeah, so we'll take the picture now. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Thank you. And we'll take the third page now. We have Rupesh, Satyan, Saiju, Victor, Jay Krishnan, DTM Nisha Varghese, DTM DD, our DD Nelson, everyone. Please smile.
Master Janesh,
Yes.
can you please put my video on? The host has stopped it.
Sure. Could you
Thank you
please
very much.
pin your name on the chat?
Rashmi.
All right, just a minute.
Thank you very much.
You must be able to start the video now.
Thank you.
Yes. So we'll go to the final page. Please bear with me for a minute more. Yeah. Yeah. Rashmi, Pranav Triknad, Bhavi. So we'll go and Amjad Ali. Yes. So we'll take the picture now. Please smile. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. So we are done.
Thank you, Toastmaster Dinesh. We can all have our videos turned off. And for the Q&A session, we have our facilitator, Samira Khan, who would be sharing the questions directly to Toastmaster Aaron's chat box. He'll be taking the questions through her. Did you start receiving the questions, Toastmaster Aaron?
Yes, I have the first question to read.
Awesome.
First question is how to make up for the limitation of body language in online speeches. For this one, what I will say is that you don't want to overcompensate for the body language. Obviously, you're no longer going to be able to see anything from, for in this case, the chest down. But that's okay. All that I need to keep in mind is that if I'm making gestures with my hands, for instance, I listed the numbers of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wanted to make sure that you could see those hand gestures. So I made sure to bring my hands up. But when it comes to other body language, and Mark alluded to this in his presentation as well, that you can tell when people are laying it on.
I'm sorry, is Mr. Aaron muted? Or do we have an audio issues?
No. Are you able to hear me now?
Fine. We can hear it. Please go ahead. You're fine.
So you want to make sure that you're not overcompensating. You want to make sure that you don't go totally over the top when it comes to speaking. You don't want to be so flamboyant with your hand gestures that they become a distraction. So keep it simple. Imagine that you're sitting at your dinner table, talking to your family, and use those hand gestures that you would commonly use in your everyday speech. That would be my suggestion. All right, moving on to another question. Okay, in the contest, do you play to the gallery and judges or just be yourself? Does over preparation kill originality? So there were a couple of questions in that, but I had to learn not to play to the judges. When you are competing in the international speech contest, you do want to make sure that your speech fits the criteria. And that comes in the speech preparation. When you are done preparing the speech and you hit that stage, you no longer think about the judges. You are thinking solely about how you are going to interact with your audience in front of you. That's your main focus, your message to your audience. So that's the way that I approach it. I make sure that my speech fits the criteria, but I don't speak to judges. I speak to my audience. Can you tell a winning speech by content only without delivery? No. You do have to have some delivery mastery. I can't tell that story that I told in 2019 by saying, and I held onto the shoes. They pulled, I pulled, but I held firm. That's boring. There's so many different techniques that I need to add to that to make it more colorful, to make it more vibrant, to make it more pleasing to hear. So content alone will not win you anything. You have to have some element of delivery. Next question, is storytelling the best form of speech for contests? So I'll stop right there. There is no such thing as the way. There is only a way, and it is up to you to find your way. Storytelling is just the style that I personally used. There are other people who have used other styles before. You have people that used a multiple story format to win a contest. Then there are people who get to the World Championship that may not even use a story format per se. They may do something that feels more like a workshop. Now, when it comes to the World Championship of Public Speaking, there needs to be some element of storytelling. I do not think that there's been a world champion that has won with just an informational speech. They just provide the information and then they win the World Championship. I don't think that's ever happened. Now, if it has, please correct me, but you need some element of storytelling. But after that, it is a wide range of different things that you can do. How to add humor naturally. When it comes to humor, I have a saying that you do not want to use humor that you do not naturally use in everyday life. If you have a situation where you laugh at something, you find something funny, sit down and think sometimes, why did you think that was funny? Because if it was funny to you, it may be funny to someone else. So what I would do, I would find something that I think was funny. Maybe it's something that I thought of a nice humorous story or a joke. I'll practice that joke in a conversation. If people laugh, I know that I'm onto something and I'll try to replicate that with a larger audience. And it's the same for just impromptu. If I'm having a conversation with somebody one day and all of a sudden I say something, people start to laugh, I register that in my head. It's one of the curses that I have for public speaking now, where I'm always thinking about, somebody reacted this way. Why did they act that way? So I will write down, whether it's a mental note or actually physically writing it down, what made them laugh. And then again, I'm going to try to replicate that with a bigger audience. The key is that I'm testing out this material. I take a page out of a comedian's playbook where I will go to different stages and I will try to test out the material. And the stage in this case would be a conversation with a friend or a Toastmaster group or anywhere where I can have an audience. So test out your material. Okay, what if you have a mentor given by your club and need to change them as you know better of what your needs are? Well, the first thing you need to say to your club is, I know what my needs are. Here is what I want to work on. Can you help me find a mentor that fits that? So you shouldn't just get a mentor just for the sake of getting a mentor if you are not coming into Toastmasters completely new or coming into public speaking completely new. Let people know what you want to work on, and your club can see if they can find someone with that criteria. Now, if they can't, That's perfectly fine too. You can still learn from people, but they're not going to be able to help you in the way that you may want to be helped. So Toastmasters is a large organization. You can find maybe someone higher. Talk to your area director, talk to your division director, talk to your trio if you have the ability to talk with them. And they can help you find the mentor that you seek. But there is a mentor for you out there. So it's either you telling people, this is what I want to work on, please help me find a mentor that fits this criteria, or it's you physically putting in the work to find your quality mentor. All right, how do I focus on expression of audience in virtual meetings? Because if I look at them, it won't be looking directly at the camera. You can't. If you want to look directly at your audience, give proper eye contact, then you have to look at your camera. Now, you shouldn't be so focused on the audience reaction when it comes to online presentation anyway, because you're not going to get the live audience feedback. So many times the audience is going to have their cameras off. So what you do need to do, you're going to have to really rely on the power of your content. All of the stories that I told, everything that I did was practiced before. I have given it before to an audience. I know what the audience will find humorous. I know what the audience will find insightful. I know what the audience will find encouraging because I've received this feedback in the past. It's going to take more time because you don't get that live audience feedback as you would if you were giving it in front of your Toastmaster audience and you hear the laughter, you hear the reactions, but you can still do it. It's just going to take a little bit more time. But when it comes to online presentations, you have to really rely on your presentation and the content that you have prepared beforehand. All right, next question. Is storytelling the best form for speech contest? So this goes again into what I said before, where there is truly no best way, but when it comes to storytelling, there should be some element of it in your speech contest. Storytelling is one of the ways that you can engage your audience because you're engaging their mind. You can tell a visual story by using visual language and you will engage the listener's mind and bring them into your story, at least if you're a good storyteller. So storytelling, some level of storytelling is needed, but there is no such thing as the way. There may be somebody who goes to the 2021 World Championship of Public Speaking and they win with a research report, who knows? So just keep that in mind. There's no such thing as the way. It's only a way. Now, we've reached time, and I just want to close by saying that as you are speaking, there is a cycle that you need to think about. So before, I could not get better because there was something that was impeding my growth. I ask all of you, if you have something that is impeding your growth, whether it's a fear of public speaking, whether it's not having a quality mentor, or whether it's not finding your own style, reflect on what you want to do. Sit and reflect. And then when you reflect and you find out what your limitations may be, you find who your quality mentor is, you find this path to create the style that you want to create, then you can start your cycle of growth. And when you start your cycle of growth, you will be able to live by the statement that I live by. Keep speaking, keep improving, and keep moving forward. Thank you so much, District 105. Thank you so much, Toastmasters around the world. It has been a pleasure.
As someone who was an introvert growing up, I completely feel your pain. And of course, I have and still have my episodes of psh moments. So, dear participants, I know your mics are muted, but it's fine. But do repeat after me. Keep speaking, keep improving, and keep moving. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Aaron Beverly, for captivating and inspiring us with your lovely journey. And we absolutely adore your perseverance and determination. Thank you so much. Those who have watched one of the finalists, Toastmaster Sherwood John's speech, things have changed. Yes, a lot of things have changed after the C word. And we need to appreciate some noble personalities for making this event happen. To begin with, thank you, Distinguished Toastmaster Nelson, Distinguished Toastmaster Gurbinder, Distinguished Toastmaster Deepa, Toastmaster Junesh, Toastmaster Abidul Islam, DTM Samira Khan, Distinguished Toastmaster Balaji, Distinguished Toastmaster Mark Hunter, Distinguished Toastmaster James, Distinguished Toastmaster Robin Anand, Toastmaster Aaron Beverly, and every one of you who attended today. As a new world champion of public speaking, Toastmaster Mike Carr said, victory is not in the reserve. Victory is in the try. We have learned a lot today, and let's keep trying. Stay blessed, stay safe, God bless. And may I request everyone to unmute your mic and turn on your video to give a huge round of applause to the legends who have been with us, and which also includes each and every one of you. Thank you. On that note, we conclude today's session.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you very much for all.
Thank you very much for everyone. Wonderful speech. Great event. Thank you.